Hello parties to the UNCCD. My name is Francis Ogwal from Uganda, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Open Eden Working Group to develop the post-2020 Global Diversity Framework.
And I'm Basil Van Aert from Canada, the other co-chair with Francis on this post-2020 working group for the Convention on Biological Diversity. We regret not being able to be with you today. Your work is important to both Francis and I, to the country you represent, and to the broader community. Today, we would like to provide you with an overview of the process and leave you with a few questions to consider during your meeting. So, first, we will give you an overview of the process.
The work for the post-2020 process has been divided into 3 phases. The first phase began with consultations with the representatives from the 5 UN regions. This first phase has just completed with our first meeting of the post-2020 Open-Ended Working Group, which will close tomorrow, 30th August 2019, here in Nairobi, Kenya. This completion of the first phase means that the global community has identified a structure, scope, main elements, and the next steps for the new post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework.
The second phase will oversee intersessional processes that address broader thematic issues like area-based conservation measures and resource mobilization. Some of these processes are already being established through CBD technical groups. However, some of these teams are without established processes. These remaining teams will be discussed at their own fora under our open-ended working group. Then, in early 2020, we are convening again in China for our second working group meeting to draft text informed by the intersessional process to deliver a new post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework.
Finally, the third phase will bring all this work together in the summer of 2020 in Colombia. We will prepare a consolidated package that hopefully will have resolved the vast majority of issues, leaving only a small number of issues, if any, for our political leaders to resolve by the CBD's COP14 in October 2020, again in China. Our preference would be to have all issues resolved before COP15, if possible. And as you can see, this will be a busy 15 months for global biodiversity community, and your work is important to help us become more informed for our discussions.
As for the content of the new framework, we have many options. We may build on the current 2 objectives of the CBD framework, which are the conservation of biological diversity, 2, sustainable use of its component, and 3, the fair and equitable sharing of the benefit arising from the utilization of genetic resources.
The CBD Biodiversity Framework also sets objectives and implementation agreements that rely on strong partnerships in order to transform actions into concrete results. In a number of cases, the CBD relies on the work carried out by other conventions, such as UNCCD. We believe that in identifying synergies and core benefits between conventions and working together, we will ultimately maximize our chances to achieve a collective vision for nature. We are looking forward to increased cooperation and coordination between our 2 Rio conventions and with several others, such as the UNFCCC and CITES.
We've been delighted to participate in many biodiversity meetings and having the opportunity to address UNCCD at your COP. In June, in Bern, signatories of the Rio Convention and several other agreements met for the first time to discuss how we can work together to reach our common goal. They set a positive and collaborative tone for a new global approach for the environment. For many, including myself, this discussion was an eye-opener. We could all see the exponential benefits of supporting each other to meet common objectives. For this type of collaborative action can go well beyond administrative measures like reporting to how global priority is set.
We echo the statements made by the UN Deputy Secretary General, in which she noted that biodiversity-related conventions has its unique role and mandate, but collectively they provide a global strategy for arresting the loss of biological diversity, which is critical to attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. As you have seen, Biodiversity is on the forefront of the public sphere. We are using the recent IP-based Global Assessment Report on biodiversity and ecosystem services as a starting point for discussions. This report had widespread media attention and broad public reaction. We recognize that if we use sound science from IP-based as a basis for our discussions, we hope that this will foster collaborative spirit to help us all understand how desertification is a direct driver of biodiversity loss. Your work and perspectives are important and can help us design an effective post-2020 global biodiversity framework.
Now, for a few questions for you to consider during your COP. First, we're interested in getting your view on how biodiversity could be best linked with the SDG goals on desertification. We ask you, should we have a separate complete system within CBD? Should we rely on SDG goals? Or could we find synergies between the biodiversity framework and UNCCD's 2018-2030 strategic framework? For example, if we decide to have a goal around sustainable management of forests, then should we incorporate SDG Goal 15 of the 2030 agenda instead of setting up a specific target for CBD? And how do you feel this should link with deforestation?
Second, we would appreciate your thoughts on sustainable agriculture to combat land degradation. The IP-based assessment has identified land conversion as the first cause for land conversion is increased land use to produce food. We also know that in certain parts of the world, we will also see increases in population, which in turn will result in overall demand for food. How can we establish clear linkages between food production, land use, desertification, and biodiversity?
Lastly, on prioritization species and habitat versus environmental goods and service. We have heard that biodiversity targets should be tied to species and habitat. We've also heard that we should consider biodiversity through an environmental goods and service lens. This means ensuring our ecosystems are healthy and resilient in order to provide and sustain all humans with what they need, and of particular interest to UNCCD, food and forest cover. We would like you to consider and share with us your views through your desertification lens on the following two questions. 1. Are those two perspectives compatible? And 2. How should this perspective be integrated in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework? We encourage you to help us to continue to facilitate cooperation among the Biodiversity Convention. We would like to invite you to share your perspective amongst each other and with us, so we can capture your ideas and find synergies between our work and yours to broaden our understanding and inform our post-2020 discussion for the future of biodiversity.
We are deeply thankful for the time and energy that you will take to consider and discuss the questions we have raised. We hope that you have productive conversations during your COP14. We are looking forward to hearing about your outcomes and receiving your perspectives so we can share them within the biodiversity community.
If you're interested in seeing regular updates, you can do so in two different ways. First, Francis and I have created a blog on the CBD Post-2020 webpage with updates and summaries of our work. We encourage you to visit our blog regularly to know what's going on. And secondly, find us on Twitter. We will also be actively tweeting regular updates and process. Thank you.